Okay. Sorry about the delay. I'm back this time with the live feed on how to make large pots. And I appreciate your patience. And if you just give me a minute. So, I'm outside, not in my car, because I hurt my back the other day. And I feel like I'm going to hurt my back again. The wheel that I was going to use in the back of my car is a great old kick wheel, and I'm not going to be able to use it because it required some serious bending over in the back of my car, as you can imagine. Just sitting here on this low chair, the seat's a little low. May be a little bit of an issue, but I'll be fine. So, thank you all for joining us. This is First Friday at Old Church Cultural Center, live event. As with live events on TV, we've seen how these things can be quite, everything's new. Started a few minutes ago, turned off the video because I thought I would do a little preview, and then I couldn't figure out how to get Facebook Live again. I know how to do it now very well, but I had a moment or two there where it was a little bit of a struggle. So, I'm just going to do a quick wedge. So, when people are trying to make taller pots, they struggle with technique because they don't realize that the inside of the pot, I see people joining us on Instagram, and I see people asking questions, but honestly, you're a little far. Let me see what the questions are. Let's see here. Oh, Aaron's there. Barbara, how you doing? Roca Arch is following. Hey, everybody's here. Okay, so let's get to it. That's my friend Dan. So, a little dry center. I've got a temperamental pedal. Okay. Just bring the clay up and down a few times to center. Now, what I was talking about before is that when people use more clay than they're used to, or perhaps if they start and the clay isn't quite centered, when you try to bring the clay up for a tall pot, if it's off a little bit, as we all know, some of us know, it'll bite you. So, I've been asked about this t-shirt. This is for I think that's the 44th annual invitational show at Old Church in Demorest, New Jersey. My friend Bruce Daynard is one of the curators. And Old Church means a lot to me. It's a community center, and in these times, good times and bad, you need community centers. They're an outreach program for members of small towns, and they give people an opportunity to grow and learn. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm actually pushing out very strongly. I can't really change the camera angle, but right now the inside of the pot is very square, all right, purposely so. This pot, I don't have my wire tool. I brought it up here. No, I can't find it. It's a wire tool, so it's very thin. What I'm doing now is I'm pushing inward with my outside hand. My right hand is pushing inward. I apologize if you're asking questions. Oh, you get some hand clapping. So when I'm pushing inward, the bottom of the pot, I call this the 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 way of working on a pot. The bottom third is where a lot of people leave a lot of weight. So the outside wall of the pot might be very straight, but the inside of the pot may have too much weight. And in this part of the process, I've already pushed out very firmly with my inside hand. I get the strength from the shoulder, not from the hand actually, but I pushed out with that inside position, and I've squeezed the clay so that when I squeeze the clay here, you see how it's changed over here? You can't see because my hand is here, but if you look over here, as I apply pressure with my outside hand and my inside hand, the wall is coming up, primarily because I'm squeezing that space between my hands. Now I want to make sure that this top doesn't get out of shape. And right now I've still got that very square space on the inside of the pot. A lot of times people will struggle with that. Now look at this arm here. It's my right arm. I'm resting my right arm right on the thigh so that I get a lot of leverage. And I'm keeping my hands very steady as I come up the wall of the pot. I don't need a lot of speed. The clay's already soaking wet. And if I keep the wall thick at the top, if it gets too wide, because you're looking at a camera instead of your pot, if it's still thick enough, it's easy to collar it in. Let's do that again. The real goal is to bring the wall up, and as you bring it up, you're going to bring it up slightly on an angle. So down here, I'm going to push out a little bit again with that left hand. That inside hand is going to push out and meet that outside hand. Again, nice, straight, smooth bottom. Pardon me for looking around, but I really did. You know how you go looking for a tool and it's never there? Well, I'm that kind of potter too. All right? I brought a wire tool up here for a reason, because I wanted to cut some pots in half. I will be able to do it another way. Okay, this has got a nice interior. Clean up some of that water in there. Okay, so now, as I said before, how much water? I pushed out with my left hand, and my right hand now is just bringing the wall between my fingers. I've curled my right hand, my index finger on my right hand. I bring the clay up with that right hand. Okay. Again, the top is not too thin. So I wanted to bring this in a little bit more. My friend Andy Boswell got a very good note about when a person wants to make a tall piece, such as a bottle. A lot of times, one of the mistakes people make is they make that top too thin. I'm going to collar the whole thing up here. I'm a little thin at the base, but without water and a flat right hand and a flat inside hand, I'll just straighten that out. There we go. If I straighten that out with a rib tool, that'll work as well. All right, so back to my point that Andy made, and I've done that myself. If you keep the top third of your pot, if you want to make a bottle form or a pitcher, and you know you're going to bring it in narrow at the top later in the process of throwing, if you make this wall too thin, you can't collar it later. You need to keep some thickness there. So that's one of the reasons why I keep a good amount of thickness there. I brought that in with basically my thumb. Bring this up a little bit more. And now I'm going to shape it. When I say shape it, I'm going to use a metal rib. I'm going to have a little fun with it. Say you were going to make a pitcher or a bottle. If this wall is too thick down here, and you wanted to have this nice straight wall that you have, see the straight wall that I have? I'll make it even straighter. If that wall is too thin, if the wall is too thick, and it makes the pot too heavy, then what I have to do is I have to trim that later to make it the right thinness, so it's not a bomb. Nothing worse than a heavy pitcher because you have to fill it with liquid. All right, so that's actually a pretty thin pot, all the way down. I'm going to use this tool probably to cut it in half. I'll just give it a little bit of a lip so you can see. Keep looking for that. All right, I've got 10 more minutes plus. I'm going to cut this in half, and I can use my old tool. All right. This pedal, I don't trust this pedal. Okay, so as this falls away, you'll see that the wall, as the pot falls to the ground, has a gentle taper from the bottom's a little thin. I have a tendency to go thin with my bottoms. I don't like to trim. But as you can see here, I'm going to throw another piece. As you can see, that wall is relatively straight all the way through. Let me see if I can help you guys see that better. I'll get it a little bit closer to the cameras. There you go. That's a little bit better light. You see that? All right. That wall, it could be thinner, but this is kind of soft, this clay. No excuses. I can go thinner. If you want to go thinner, use less water. That's a good piece of information. So, more clay. Still no wire tool. I'll find that wire tool. I wish I could answer questions. I was going to show you, and I'll do it now. I'll do it really quickly. I had some other pieces here that I made earlier that I wanted to show you some mistakes. And this one has got a monstrous thick bottom. Okay, the wall is pretty good, but I'll get this question a lot from students. Is the bottom thin enough? And the old trick is that you use a needle tool. Okay, see how thick that bottom is? I exaggerated for the purposes of the lesson. But the real trick is to gauge that bottom. I don't use a needle tool. I said my bottom was a little thin, but that's my habit. Needle tools are good and helpful, but I tend to keep compressing. So what happens sometimes is my bottoms get even thinner than I expect. But being aware of that is important, obviously. So back to the lesson about tall, thin, robust forms that utilize all the clay that we have. Let's just say this is 4 pounds of clay. This is a little bit more than 4 pounds, but if it's 4 pounds of clay, I don't have a ruler, but I should be able to get at least a 10-inch high pot. You know, depending on the diameter, but I should be able to get it. I should be able to get it pretty tall. And after I get it tall, I should make it thin enough so I don't waste the clay. Like, for instance, if I'm making a mug, I use 1 pound of clay, which gets to be roughly 4 inches high, 3.5 inches wide. A lot of times a student will pick up 1.5 pounds of clay, sometimes more, and I'll say, "What are you making?" And they'll say, "Well, I want to make a mug." "Why do you have all that clay?" "Well, I lose a lot of clay." Well, you don't want to lose a lot of clay. You want to be efficient with the amount of clay that you have on the wheel. And that holds true in the next stage. If you're trimming a lot of clay, now I studied for 4 years in Korea, and Koreans, and myself included, we love to trim, but what they're doing when they're trimming a large moon jar is they're refining that surface. So the next person in the studio can put fine, intricate designs on it. So I've just gone across and given the bottom a nice flat square bottom again, okay, straight walls. And now I'm going to proceed using this thumb as a guide and this hand and this leg to help push. I'm going to push the clay inward as I go up, creating that pyramid shape. And as I get to the top, I compress that lip a little bit. And each time I bring the wall up, I bring the base in a little bit. So I started out with maybe 7 inches of base, but I don't want to finish with 7 inches of base. I'm going to push in again. Can't tell, I'm going to exaggerate with my right leg, but I'm going to push in with my right leg and then resist a little bit with the fingertips of my left hand. And as I get to the top, I compress that top so that the wobble gets out of there. I don't like to cut off clay either. So I do have a little width down at the bottom. Hard to see with this light. We're starting to lose our light. But as I get to the top, I want the outside hand to push the wall in a little bit more. So now I'm going to add just a touch of water, plenty of water in the clay. Now I'm going to push out with that left hand. Left hand started straight, and I'm going to push out. As I push out, I'm going to resist with this outside hand, and from that, I'm going to create an S curve. My friend Ray, Andy's father, used to teach this. It's a very good method to think about how the clay processes through our fingertips as we pull a wall up. If we just press at the same point, nothing really happens. The clay doesn't move. Some clay goes down, some clay goes up. But if my lower hand is a little bit below, my lower hand. My outer hand is a little bit below my inside hand, and there's a floor in the pot, so the inside hand should always be higher. What will happen is as I push out with this hand, and I get under it with these fingertips, there's a little bit of an S, a little bit of an elbow, I call it, that pushes out, and I push that elbow up. And as I straighten that elbow out, the wall gets taller. So again, I'm down here. I'm going to use this position where I curl my index finger around my thumb so that the tip of my thumb is pointing at the middle digit, middle section of my index finger. And I'm just going to pull the wall up. I don't need to apply too much pressure, which I'm applying too much pressure, and bring the wall up. You don't see me adding a lot of water. I know a lot of people who know me see me throw with a lot of water, but you really don't have to. One of the beauties about clay is once you get the walls of the pot to the height you want them to be, and that goes for a bowl. Look at me, the Italian, gotta talk with my hands. So if you're making a bowl, you get the height or more of the bowl that you want. So if you want a bowl that's gonna be 4 inches high, you go 4.5 inches high, and then you bring it out to its width of maybe 7 inches. Those are just rough numbers to throw it out there. But that's one of the best ways to get consistency with your shapes. Get your height first, and then get your width. Okay? So, a few more minutes. I'm going to do again that same motion. I don't have to push out very far with my left hand. Okay? I'm going to just squeeze a little harder, get a little aggressive. I'm getting too thin. See if I can save it. It's live TV, live video. Nope, I went too thin. Can't seem to find any tools. All right, so one last pot, this time less talking. Oh man, not that much clay. It's pretty cool thrown outside. So, if you don't wedge your clay, you have to do your wedging on the wheel. So even if you do a little bit of wedging, it's really not enough. But this is a mess here, and I'm gonna make it happen. I was watching a video the other day. I'd seen it years ago, an old video by Tim C, who demonstrates how to make a platter, and he basically puts the clay on the wheel pretty much the way I just did. He has a lot more success quickly, but then he finishes the platter, he rolls it up and puts it on the table. He's got a great sense of humor. Okay, so now, almost lost the top. It's getting pretty dark. Let's finish this up. Again, I've got that nice flat bottom. If you listen carefully, you're going to hear all the air bubbles. All right, again, using the heel of my right hand and the thumb of my left hand. Oh, is it that dark? Okay, there it's, Instagram it's a little lighter. I don't know if Facebook can see this as well. Okay. But again, I'm just going to push up and inward with my outside hand, because there are lefties out there, like my beautiful, talented, incredible daughter, Courtney. Both my daughters, Elizabeth and Courtney, are amazing people, hardworking. I hope they're well during this time. I hope everyone's well, safe and sound. Stay indoors. As they say, flatten the curve. Okay, so now I'm throwing against the heel of the bottom of my right hand, and I'm curling the fingertips of my left hand a little bit. Working with that square inside. Moving the base in a little bit. Bring the wall up. I keep getting a little greedy with the soft clay. There we go. You can't rush it, and I just tried to rush it. That's better. So what happened just then was I rushed it, which means I tried to bring the wall up too fast in one pull, and in doing so I created a weaker area. But as I tried to do before, it didn't really work. It didn't work at all. I straightened the wall out on this pot. And once I straightened the wall out, that area that wanted to collapse didn't. It cooperated. I'm bringing in the top a little bit. So, as I've got this wall almost done, and Instagram's getting a little bit more light, apparently. Hi, Facebook. Hi, Instagram. Hi, everybody. I'm going to do one last pull or two on this pot. Use a metal rib just to bring the wall a little thinner. Now, if you curl your fingers of your inside hand and point your fingertips at the rib, you can bring the wall up with a pull, with a rib. A lot of times we use ribs just to shape. And ribs can also be used to bring up height. So, who the heck knows how much? Everybody asks, how much clay was that? I don't know. That was quite a lot of clay. off some of that extra clay. So, Old Church Cultural Center, again, home of the annual invitational pottery show that was founded by Karen Carnes and Michael Zakin. Michael Zakin was and still remains very dear to me. She helped me get to Korea. She helped me in so many ways in my career as a ceramic artist and teacher. So again, a little bit more shaping. I'm going to cut this one in half too. Basically just trying to show you that hardly any water, just the right amount of stretching, okay, and you can get a nice tall pot that's thin and robust. Ah, I touched my face. Everyone, please be safe, be careful out there, don't go out there. I love you all. Take care. It's going to take me a minute to turn off the live feed because I have to remember. Oh, there's an end button over there. As I cut this in half. Oh, don't fall over. Don't fall over. I want to show the good people who are still there. Let's see here. This is a mess. So, if I turn this upside down, maybe you can get an idea of how thin that is. Okay? All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves. I see some great comments. I'll have to look back at this video and look at all the wonderful comments. Thank you for all your time.